So you're doing interest-led homeschooling, but suddenly your child seems completely unmotivated. They don't want to learn anything. And now you're wondering, is this still working? Am I doing this right? I recently read on an unschooling Facebook group that a mom was really worried that she was she doing the right thing. She started an interest-led learning approach when she pulled her kids out of school, and her kids just lit up. They were researching, they were doing all the things. They were so excited to jump into things that they were interested in. And it lasted for like 9 months, maybe a little bit more. But then the kids just stopped. They seemed to be interested in nothing. But to her, were they really doing nothing all day? And then after about 9 months, the kids just stopped. They seemed to be interested in nothing. Or at least to her, they were doing nothing all day. And so I get it. These moments can feel really scary, but they're also completely normal. So today we're going to talk about what's really happening when your child seems disengaged. So how are you going to respond without pushing? And how are you going to know whether to step in or to simply wait? And if you're navigating one of these tough seasons, I offer one-on-one coaching to help you figure out what's next without losing your mind and your values. But maybe you just stumbled upon this video and you're brand new to homeschooling and you're wondering how you want to get started. I do offer a free ebook that's linked in the description below. And then if you really want to take a deep dive in getting started in your homeschooling, I have a really inexpensive online course. But for now, let's get to the video. So first, I want you to hear this clearly. All learners go through ebbs and flows, and adults do too. Some weeks we're diving into books or goals, and then other times we're resting, we're processing, and we're avoiding. Kids are the same, believe it or not, but we often panic when it happens to them. As parents of this day and age, we want to make sure that our kids are doing something all the time. And if it's something educational by our standards, all the better. And why is that? I've often wondered, I'm a millennial parent, and as a millennial parent, it has crossed my mind several times. Why do we want our kids so busy, always learning something? Because I can tell you that my parents did not raise me that way. My kids went to work, had us go to school, and they didn't care what we did in our free time as long as we weren't getting in trouble and being delinquents. So, but I don't know. Anyway, I digress. In traditional school, kids are forced to learn on someone else's schedule. But in self-directed learning, we trust the child's internal rhythms, and that includes seasons and low output. These slower seasons often come after a growth spurt, after a big emotional event like moving or a big family shift or even burnout from deschooling. It can also come before a leap in development, and also when you're processing big internal changes that we can't really see. So it's not failure, it's integration. When kids seem uninterested in learning, it's rarely about laziness. It's usually a signal. So here are a few possibilities that I just want you to think about. Does your child need rest? Like us, kids sometimes need mental and emotional downtime. Constant learning is not sustainable. Also, I want you to think about, are they resisting pressure? Even in a relaxed homeschool, subtle pressure from us, saying something like, why don't you read a book today? Saying something like that can create resistance. And I am definitely guilty and struggle with this one. Also, think about if your child is in a transition zone. So this in between is common. So old interests fade, but new ones haven't really emerged yet. And that void can feel really scary, not only for you as the parent, worried that they're not learning anything or interested in anything, but maybe also for the child. Also, think about your child could be afraid to fail. If they've hit a challenge, like struggling to write something they've imagined, for example, they may shut down instead of push through. But as the parent, your job isn't to force a fix, it's to notice, it's to stay curious, and to create space. So I have a few examples for you from families that I know, and just so it can just help you understand a little bit more. And I've also just kind of changed and try to keep it as anonymous as I can. So I have a friend who has a 9-year-old who seemed just obsessed with gaming. And the mom was just panicking that this particular child would never read again, would never pick up a book. But it turned out that he was decompressing from years of school pressure. So after a month of gaming, he started writing his own stories about his favorite games. So, I understand you were afraid that he's never going to pick up a book again, but by just giving him some time and space, you don't have to let him play games 24/7, but by just letting it be, they do eventually transition to other things. Another example I have is a tween who stopped reading completely. And her mom was really worried because this was an activity that her child just really, really loved. She would have to force her to go outside, and often she would bring a book with her. To be outside, and she had gone from devouring books to just completely avoiding them altogether. So what helped this child? Was zero pressure from anyone, having space. Also, this family went to the library very often, like every single week, and just letting this child explore and do different formats. So like audiobooks, graphic novels, things like that. And then just one day, she picked up a book again on her own and flew through it. And she's back to reading. She just needed some downtime and some space. But it was scary for the parent to see her daughter go from read to just like being done, like just not wanting it anymore. But it doesn't mean she's never going to read again. It's all about trusting the time, and that's the hardest part. Another example I have for you is a 7-year-old who was doing nothing all day according to her parents. So what we learned from this child that was doing nothing all day according to her parents is that she was quietly processing her parents' divorce. Obviously, if you are a child of divorce, you know how traumatic it can be. Kids cannot just act as if things aren't happening and just keep things going as they are. So around 6 weeks or so, she dove into making art, making her own art about her feelings. And she started writing like comic strips, comic graphic, now whatever you want to call them now, to help her process those feelings. So I give you these examples to help you know that these dips aren't dead ends. They're underground root work, and they almost always end up leading to growth. So if you are needing some scientific research on this, I do have some in neuroscience. Love neuroscience. This downtime is called consolidation. When the brain appears inactive, it's actually sorting, it's pruning and strengthening neural pathways. Learning doesn't just happen during activity, it also happens during rest and reflection. So that quiet, unmotivated phase is not wasted time, it's invisible development. And I hope you could realize that as an adult that's learning things or going through whatever. Like sometimes you just need time to think and process, and that can take a day, that could take a couple hours, that could take a couple weeks. So this downtime is not wasted time. So some reflection questions I have for you to think more deeply on this subject, whether you want to pause on the questions, write them down, whatever works for you. Here are some questions I have for you to think more deeply. What story do I tell myself when my child seems unmotivated? Do I believe that rest and doing nothing can be productive? What fears come up for me during quiet learning seasons? What would change if I trusted the pause? So these are deep questions, and they come up often in my one-on-one coaching. If you'd like to walk through this season without panic, I would love to support you, and that is linked below. So how can you support your child during these nothing is happening phases? I have some tips for you. So I want you to try normalizing it. I want you to say out loud, it's okay to have quiet seasons. We all need rest. I want you to stay connected. I want you cuddling your kids. I want you to keep laughing with them. I want you to play, have connection, not curriculum. That's what you should be prioritizing right now. I also want you to offer, but not assign. So leave out an open invitation, a board game, a documentary, a cool new book, maybe a new material of some kind. And I just want you to walk away and just let the kids explore. Then we need to shift the focus. Instead of, what are you learning? Try maybe saying, what made you smile today? Or maybe, what do you feel like doing right now? And the last one is to wait without panicking. And this is a skill, and you're developing it too, and it takes a long time. So in close, you guys, to wrap this up, you are wondering what happens when your child doesn't want to learn. The answer is you trust the pause. You stay present. You remember that humans don't grow in straight lines. We grow in spirals, starts and stops, in deep winters and wild springs. You don't have to fix this. You just have to stay in it with them. If this video gave you some peace today, I'd be honored if you would like and subscribe. And I just want you to know that you are not failing, you're just growing. So I'll see you in the next video. Have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.